After over a year of delays, Dom and the crew are finally racing back onto the big screen. So let's talk about it. When Dom's brother emerges as a global threat, Dom must come out of retirement, get the crew back together to stop him. The Fast and the Furious franchise is a bit of an oddity in that it started as a series about street racers committing heists, and somewhere along the way it morphed into like a spy franchise about ridiculous stunts and scenarios unfolding, and because of that they've kind of turned into these cinematic events that my wife and I love to go see opening week. So now the big question is, has the franchise gone too far? I'll let you know what I thought about that and my wife thought about that in just a second. Be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, did you love it? Did you hate it? Did it go too far, or do you want it to go even further? With that said, let's get started with the good. And right off the bat, I'll just say this, my wife and I had a blast watching this movie in a theater. She was howling with laughter most of the movie at these outrageous scenarios that were unfolding. Whether you're talking about a car swinging like Tarzan, or a car with a rocket on top of it. No way. Or cars with magnet projector things on them. It's just filled with insane scenarios, and it just goes for it. It doesn't apologize for any of the absurdity. It doesn't really try to explain any of it. It just wants to entertain the audience with these crazy situations, and we had a lot of fun watching all of this unfold. And it wasn't just us having a lot of fun. A whole lot of people in our theater were just laughing out loud throughout the entire movie. I don't know if that's the intended reaction that the filmmakers wanted, but people were having a positive emotional reaction to this film, whether they were laughing at it, laughing along with it, I don't know, but people were having a lot of fun in my theater. And keep in mind, this was a press screening, so this was movie critics, not kind of the core fan base on opening night. The other thing that I think made this one a bit more entertaining is that it's by far the most self-aware of the Fast and Furious movies. Obviously, they've kind of been winking at the camera a little bit with the level of absurdity that's been taking place in the franchise over the last decade, but in this movie, it's actually like verbalized by some of the characters. They themselves are paying attention to how insane the scenarios are and how much they're surviving it. In particular, what's going on with Roman and Tej. It's a lot of fun, and I thought it kind of added on top to the enjoyment of the ridiculousness that they themselves are aware, just like the audience is, of how crazy all of this is. And so it starts with like a ridiculous situation, and then there's an outrageous complication, and somehow it's resolved by some insane, improbable situation, and they are commenting on all of it as it's happening. I thought that was a lot of fun. Likewise, it's a movie where it seemed like they were focusing a lot more on the actual characters' reactions to the ridiculousness that's going around. If you've seen the trailers, you know certain characters come back from the dead, there's big gigantic reveals, and the movie focuses in on the characters who are having the same reactions as the audiences are having as this is happening. So if you kind of like a little bit of self-awareness, winking at the camera in your movie, this has a lot of that going on. Another nice little touch with this movie is that they break up the team in the middle act of the film to kind of go off on all these different side quests. That does have some negative consequences for the story, which we'll talk about later on. But what it means is that some of the side characters essentially get to be the star of their own little mini movie inside of this film. So everybody kind of gets their moment in the spotlight to shine, whether it's an action sequence, a little comedy bit, a ridiculous scenario, everybody gets to stand out. And in particular, I like the little segment with Mia and Letty and them getting in on the action a little bit more distinctly in the forefront of the story. Honestly, at this point in time, you know what you're in for with the Fast and the Furious movie. If you're going for like deep characters, relatable motivations, and grounded physics, probably not gonna be the right movie for you. But if you're going for the outrageous scenarios with charismatic, fun characters just doing wacky stuff, This movie will deliver everything that you want. As I mentioned before, my wife and I have very fond memories of going to the Fast and the Furious movies opening weekend and just having an absolute blast watching them with a packed theater. And this one, once again, provided that fun experience. Here's what my wife had to say on Twitter: best date night ever. And then over on Facebook, she said, I got to see F9 with Sean Chandler. I cannot remember the last time I had so much fun with a movie. Maybe Hobbs and Shaw. I laughed so much, cackled, can't wait to see it again. It's ridiculous, but it is exactly what I didn't even know I wanted. So my wife, that's just a casual movie fan that just wanted something ridiculous, she absolutely loved it. I'm a movie critic guy, I gotta be a little bit pickier, so let's move on to the mixed aspects of the film. And these aren't necessarily good or bad things about the movie, but they're things you need to know as you go into it. First off, the trailer showed way too much. They take some of the things that are treated by the movie as plot twists, big gigantic reveals, and they just put them in the trailers, which I understand they needed to do a little bit of that to tease where things were going and what makes this one unique, but they actually spoiled the big moment, the actual reveal of the character when certain things happened in the trailers, so the actual payoff moment was just spoiled for us. Same with the big action sequences. They show a lot of the big payoff moments of the action sequences and what it's all leading up to in the trailers. Second thing you need to know, there is a mid-credit scene on this one, and it is worth sticking around to see. It's a fun little scene and ties a couple things together that leaves you wanting more in a way that is enticing. From there, let's move on to the bad. And essentially, your ability to enjoy this movie is directly related to whether or not you believe that this franchise can go too far. If you are rolling your eyes at Fate of the Furious, be careful watching this movie because it is ridiculous and your eyes might get stuck in the back of your head. Traditionally, I've called movies like this Taco Bell movies. Here I am! They're cinematic fast food. They're enjoyable to eat, but you know that it's probably not good for you. And I've pointed to like Fast Five as a perfect example of what I consider a great Taco Bell movie. Well, this is like something different altogether because it so embraces the absurdity that's really all this movie is about, because it's ludicrous scenarios tied together by soap opera. It skips the meal entirely and goes straight to the dessert, and it is possible to have too much dessert. Another strange thing about this movie, while it is all about the spectacle, it's also jam-packed with exposition and backstories. As I mentioned before, each of the characters kind of goes off on a little side quest, and everyone goes on a side quest and meets someone who then delivers a bunch of exposition and kind of their own backstory. So this movie is filled with all these mini movies telling us what all these characters have been up to throughout the years, and interwoven into the movie is kind of Dom's backstory with his family, and so it just feels kind of disjointed all over the place and telling way too many stories all at once while not actually being about story at all. Along those same lines, John Cena's motivation for becoming a global terrorist simply doesn't feel earned or make a whole lot of sense. And that wouldn't be too big of a deal for me because I don't show up to movies like this expecting reasonable character motivations, but the movie spends a lot of time explaining why he is the way he is, and when you get the final reveals to kind of put all the pieces together, you go, really? That's what's driving him to do all of this? He couldn't have a normal sit down with someone to resolve his differences. He decided to become a global terrorist instead. You just don't buy it, and the movie wastes a ton of time on it. One more thing I gotta talk about here, maybe it's my age showing, but I don't have any clue what Charlize Theron was doing with her hair in this movie.
You've made a huge mistake.
When you put it all together, and this probably isn't terribly surprising, but the movie works best in the middle of its ridiculous, over-the-top action sequences rather than during the melodrama that ties them together. And in the case of this movie, there's plenty of big, gigantic action set pieces, and there's plenty of long-winded backstories, exposition, and melodrama. All of the fun stuff that you want from the franchise, and all of the kind of character stuff that doesn't work, all of it is present in this movie. Real quick, before I give you my final score on this one, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about F9? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did it go way too far? Or do you want them to go even further with the crazy? Also, I will be ranking all of the Fast and the Furious movies this weekend. Be sure to tune in just a few days to check that out. All in all, I had a blast with the outrageous set pieces. Wasn't such a big fan of the story tying them together, but at the end of the day, I go to these movies for the ridiculous stuff, so I had a ton of fun with this movie. Overall, it's a B on the entertainment scale and 8 out of 10. And if you love the ridiculousness of this franchise, see this in the theater with a packed crowd. If you don't like the ridiculousness of where this franchise has gone, you can skip this movie entirely. Thank you so much for watching. Come back in a few days for my ranking of the entire franchise, and keep talking movies too much.